good. Bill, you just I stop and you just keep going. Bum 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 bum
Hey, kids, what time is it?
Time for Gezintahait Street.
It is time for Gezintahait Street. And the story for tonight is called Yehuda, a Shliach to Goshen. When the Tzemach Tzedek was a child, his teacher explained the Torah verse, Yaakov lived in Egypt 17 years. And according to the classic commentator, the Balatorim, who says the 17 years that Yaakov was in Egypt were the best years of Yaakov's life. When the Tzemach Tzedek returned home, he asked his grandfather, the Elder Rebbe, how could Yaakov Avinu, the choices of the forefathers, have lived his best years in Egypt?
Of the forefathers?
The choices.
Meaning what? He was the choicest of them. He was
They had Abraham had Yishmael, and Yitzhak had Esav, but Yaakov had the tribes.
He has no stain on his record.
Yeah.
Okay.
So how could it be that Yaakov, the best years of his life, was in Egypt, which is, to be polite, the armpit of the world, the nethermost of all countries? The Alter Rebbe told the Tzemach Tzedek that Yaakov sent Yehuda ahead to prepare the way for the children of Israel. In the Midrash, Rabbi Nehemiah states that Yaakov sent Yehuda ahead to establish a house of Torah learning, a yeshiva in Goshen, so that the tribes would stay close to Hashem. As a result, Yaakov truly lived in Egypt because his children were studying Torah there. Rebbe points out the conversation between the Alter Rebbe and his grandson is not just a simple story, but it contains an internal teaching for all generations in every place. The lesson is that the soul could have served Hashem by learning Torah on high, in Gan Eden, in paradise, in a settled way. But that's not what Hashem wanted. Rather, by descending to Egypt, to the nether regions, the soul has to go into the body. The soul is able to attain a level far higher than it had before it went into the body. Therefore, Yaakov's best years were in Egypt. Since the house of learning existed in the land of abomination, it served as the focal point for the soul's descent from paradise, from Gan Eden. And therefore, when the Torah says that Yaakov sent Yehuda to prepare the way for him, it's informing us that Torah cannot be regarded merely as an intellectual exercise. Rather, it must serve to instruct us how to live. Back then, Egypt provided sustenance to the whole world. So too, this country, America, sends its wealth to the nations. And all the other countries depend on it. Nevertheless, we have to know that the main and most important thing is the house of learning through which Torah can be acquired and applied. And when we conduct ourselves in this manner, not only we will not have to kowtow to the mores and culture of Egypt, but just the opposite. The rules and practices of the country will become subservient to this Jew who holds Torah and mitzvahs to be primary and sacrosanct, like Joseph, who is the ruler of the whole land of Egypt. Now we have, I added an addition here. The previous Rebbe said that when a Jew learns a book written by a tzaddik, an angel from the camp of Mechoel reports to the author of the book the name of the person who learned from the book. And the soul of that tzaddik then asks Hashem for mercy on the person who learned from his book and for his whole family. That's pretty cool.
Very cool, Bezalel.
Let's see what we're up to here. We did that. Okay. Da, 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 da. What's next?
Oh, next.
We're gonna do a little 1, 2 to oh, white dim.
Which one?
Yo, I did it.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay.
And we'll do this little one though.
Macha bissel umpa.
Okay. What was it? Yo, wait.
Yeah.
Ta-da!
Mitzalil,
Yes.
before we start, first of all, I thought of a joke.
Oh,
Why is it called Geshin? Because they said, there's a land, a beautiful pasture land for sheep. And so Yankiv turned to Yehuda and he said, no, Geshin. Go already. So they called it Geshin.
Gay shoy.
But also, I just wanted to quickly say hello to our dear friends, Abba Steinhauser, and Omer Kadison, and Ori Heinen, and Carolyn, and Angelica, and
Kenny.
Denny, the great Denny, and Jeff Poisner, and all of our dear friends,
Rabbi Shlomi
Izagli, and Marcos Vince, and a lot of our friends, Rocky Weiss, and all of our friends. We want to say hello. We'll mention more of you as the show goes on. And now, the moment we've all been waiting for. It's Hasidus.
Fasten your seatbelts. Here we go.
We contemplate the light that fills all worlds. There's two kinds of light. There's a light that surrounds all worlds equally, and there's a light that fills all worlds. So why should we contemplate the light that fills all worlds when it's a very small light? Like the light that goes into 100-watt bulb is only 100 watts. It's not 10,000 watts, but Hashem's light is infinite. So why do we contemplate this lower level of light that fills all worlds? And the reason is because through doing that, we are able to internalize inside of ourselves the connection to Hashem. Now, in the study of godliness, we're able to approach it through metaphors, through known metaphors. And the way these metaphors work is that there are multiple metaphors, and the multiple metaphors bring the idea close to the mind. However, each metaphor has a particular point that's illustrating that the other ones don't. And through learning which point each metaphor is illustrating, the other ones don't, so we'll have a broader understanding of how the light of godliness fills the world. There are three dynamics in the concept of the godly light that fills all worlds. You have light, life, and power or potential. Light contains two manifestations in the metaphors. There is the light that encompasses and surrounds everything equally. That will be like the light of the sun. And then there's the light that fills the world. That will be like the light of a candle. But the concept of light does not cover how Hashem enlivens things. Light only shines on stuff. It doesn't enliven anything. It doesn't penetrate to combine with the four categories of creation. The four categories are inorganic, flora, that means growing stuff, fauna, animals, and people, speakers. And light does not penetrate them inwardly. It only shines on them. And this is because, like the Rambam says, the stars are spiritual bodies which have no taste and no smell. They're a fifth category of creation. They don't fit into any 4 levels, and they're separate from the other 4 that we said. And those spiritual bodies, the sun and the stars, emit, however, a physical light, the light that we perceive. But that light is only called physical in comparison to its source. So the source of the light, like in the sun and the stars, is spiritual. And a physical light comes from, but that physical light is called physical only in comparison to its source, which is spiritual. But that light is spiritual compared to the 4 categories of creatures, and therefore it doesn't combine with them. But through its shine, the power of sight can see. But through the shining of that physical light that comes from the spiritual light of the heavenly spheres, a person could see stuff down here. So the ray of the sun shines from up to down, which is a dynamic called the straight light. Not so the light of a candle, which is a second metaphor for how the light that fills the world, which is drawn from the element of fire, which is one of the elements of the physical world. You have 4 elements. You want to tell me there's a periodic table that has 526, whatever it is, elements, but they can all be encompassed in 4. There's fire, water, earth, and air. And even though the fire element is the most spiritual of those elements, it's still one of those physical elements, and therefore it can combine with them, as opposed to the element of light, which can't actually combine with the physicality. For example, when fire combines with a wick and oil, light is produced. And according to how much oil is how long the light will shine and how bright it will be. And that light is called a rebounded or a returning light, as opposed to the light of the sun, which is a straight light. The light of the sun shines automatically from itself, and it's called a straight light, and it doesn't penetrate the world. But the rebounded light of a candle actually uses the elements of the world to be able to produce light. And we're talking about the light that fills our worlds. And candlelight shines from down to up according to the measure of fuel, how much oil, and therefore it's encompassed as part of the creation, as opposed to the sunlight, which is not really encompassed and part of the creation. But both of these metaphors are only light. They don't enliven the creation. Light does not enliven anything. It only shines on it. So we have to have another metaphor because Hashem enlivens the worlds. And that metaphor will be how the soul enlivens the body. Keep going or nigun?
Keep going. I think keep going for now.
But the life of the body from the soul through the flow into the limbs of the body actually enlivens that body and those limbs. The soul enlivens the body. Light does not unify with that on which it shines, like we said. Light doesn't unify on the thing it shines on. Like when a candlelight illuminates a room, it makes no change in the physicality of the room. And the light doesn't change from its spirituality. So this manifestation of energy is designated only as shining in the room. It's not enlivening the room. So we need a metaphor of a soul which enlivens the body to encompass how Hashem enlivens and creates the worlds. Not so when the soul enlivens the body, it unifies with the limbs of the body. The soul unifies with the limbs to enliven them, each one according to its particular function. Therefore, the force of the soul changes from a spiritual life, the soul is spiritual, to giving life to physicality. And the limbs change from being not enlivened to being enlivened. Like Hashem made Adam's body out of clay, the limbs were not alive, and then he breathed the soul into it. And the soul enlivened the limbs. And for the life force of the soul that's now enlivening them, and the light of life comes into the limbs in levels, each one according to its function. Not so the outspread of light, which shines equally, not like a candle or the sun, which shines every place equally. It doesn't go into the particular levels. The way the life comes into the particular limbs is called a way of indressing. It goes into them. But the level of enlivenment, even though, so we're still talking about how the soul enlivens the body, and even though it's felt in the particular limbs, nevertheless, it's a simple life. The way the limbs grasp that life is simple. They all feel alive from the soul that enlivens them. In other words, the toes and the nose are equally alive. Now, moving to the metaphor of power of potential, what's called koach, which is called the power of the actor in the act. Here you have the particular powers becoming manifest, like the power of movement in the hand. The hand has the power to move. It doesn't have the power to see. It's a particular power that comes into that limb. Even though the hand is alive, like the nose is alive, like the toes is alive, from the soul that enlivens them.
Like the nose is alive, like the toes is alive. I like that.
And they all alive. But how that life comes into each particular limb to enliven it so it can do its function. In the eye for seeing, and in the ear and hearing, and in the hand for moving. So the general life is contracted to give power to the individual limb to perform its particular function, or the power of the intellect in the brain to think. And these particular powers are manifest through the outer vessels. And now we're going in to how the body is enlivened by the soul.
Okay, so let's have a niggin. That was
No, I want to hear
that
this.
was the light.
Ah!
That was the light. Now we have a niggin, and then we go into the soul enlivening the body.
In a particular
Yeah,
limb.
but yeah. Okay, first of all, just want to say hello to our dear friends, to Marla Emdur, and Shalom Olensky, and Kathleen Claire Garbo, Marvin Hakayan Birner, our
Marvin.
Leib Barnett, our good friend Leib Barnett, and our good friend Aldo Caesar, and Michael Leopold, and let's see, more friends, lots of friends, Baruch Hashem. And Alan Goncho, and of course our executive producer Ira in Katz should be healthy and gesund and stuff. How about a waltz for Shabbos? And now the soul and the body.
And all the particular powers are manifest in the body through the outer vessels. Every level of vessels, there are three levels. There's the inner level, the intermediate level, and the outer level. For example, a cup is a vessel to drink liquid. The inner level of the cup is the empty place where you pour the stuff. The middle level of the cup is the walls of the cup, and the outer level is the handle that you pick it up to be able to drink with. So too in the body. The outer vessels are that through which the particular powers are manifest in the particular limbs. And those outer vessels are the capillaries, which bring the blood and the life into the muscles of the individual limbs so those limbs can accomplish their function. Not so how the life is dressed in the inner vessels, which are the nerves, and the intermediate pumping vessels, the veins and the arteries, which carry only the general life, not the particular power. So the blood, as it goes around, carries that general life. The nose is alive like the toes are alive. But how that power of life goes into the individual limbs through the capillaries is how those limbs are able to manifest their particular function. And the indressing of the soul in the blood is in general called a power. The power of the actor in the act, which is the general hidden power to measure out the particular powers which become revealed. Like it says, the blood is the soul. The soul in the blood is called nefesh. You probably remember that the soul has 5 names: nefesh, ruach, neshama, chaya, and yechid.
Naran Chai.
And nefesh is the lowest level, which is dressed in the blood. And that nefesh has its seat in the area of the liver. Not so the spirit of life, which is called ruach, which is centered in the heart. So that'll be like the source of the pumping vessels. And the level in our metaphors of enlivenment as opposed to the power of the actor in the act. So the enlivenment will be in the heart, the spirit of life. The power of the actor in the act will be in the nefesh, in the liver area. And then the highest level of the soul, which is in the body, is called neshama, which has its seat in the brain. And in our metaphors, that's the metaphor of light. So we have light. That's how the soul is manifest in the brain, called neshama. And we have the metaphor of life. That is how the spirit of life is in the heart. And we have the metaphor, the power of the actor in the act, is how the soul is dressed into the particular powers. But that light that's in the brain is an inner light, like the candle. It is combined with the stuff of the body. Then there's a surrounding light called chaya, like the light of the sun, which surrounds everything equally. So we see that the metaphor of the soul enlivening the body contains the godly action being explained by all 3 metaphors. In other words, all of these metaphors are explaining a godly action. So there is really no difference of how the soul enlivens the body and how the light shines. But you need both metaphors to be able to understand the godly action of doing both at the same time. But in how the soul enlivens the body, the metaphor of light is hidden because it's enlivenment, it's not light. Therefore, we explain the hidden dynamic of enlivenment using the sun and the candle instead of the soul in the body. And the object of these metaphors in the godly dynamic of the light that fills all worlds are the 3 qualities that we explain: light, life, and power potential, called the power of the actor in the act. Meaning, and this is how it lines up with the spheros of the attributes of the world of Atzilus. Meaning that Malchus of Atzilus, the royal attribute of godliness, the expression of God's decree, let there be light, ordering the coming into being of the creation and its parameters. Malchus is the godly speech, which is the godly decree, that brings everything into life. And that's called the light which fills all worlds. That dynamic from the godly royal decree to enliven them and bring them into being. There's two things what the godly decree does. It enlivens everything, that's the soul and the body, and it brings it into being. That's the power of the actor in the act. And each one according to its standing in the heavenly and earthly array. And all of these creations that come out from the godly decree come out according to their standing in the godly array. This one is more light, this one is less, this one is more powerful, this one is happier, this one is stronger. Like it says, your kingship is a kingship over all worlds. And also, you enliven all of them. When we use the term you, talking to Hashem, it indicates the level of divine royalty, this level of malchus. Excuse me, the first two letters of the Hebrew word for you is atah, is aleph saf. They are the first and last letters of the Hebrew alphabet. Aleph is the first letter of the alphabet, and saf is the last letter of the alphabet. And that includes all speech. The letters of the alphabet includes all speech. So the godly decree is made up of speech. And that's made up of these letters of the aleph base, aleph to saf. While the last letter in the word atah, you have aleph to saf, and then you have a hey. Indicates a divine breath. When you combine those letters for them to be manifest, there has to be a sound, there has to be a breath that comes out. Like I can have all the alephs and safs if I want. But if I don't say ah, that aleph won't be manifest. And that hey indicates a divine breath which animates those letters of speech, which come, and those letters come through the 5 speech centers of the mouth. Here we're talking the godly mouth, the source of all letters of speech. And this level of malchus enlivens all the creations through myriad combinations of the 22 letters of the alphabet.
Yes.
The combinations of the letters is without measure. So malchus enlivens and brings into being uncountable creations in each species and uncountable categories of creations. Because, for example, when Hashem says, let there be flying creatures, those letters of flying creatures combine to make all the myriad different kinds of birds and insects and all the creations that can fly. Pretty elegant and amazing.
Quite so, Vitaly.
Say again?
Quite so.
Quite so, indeed.
Indeed.
Elegant as an elephant.
What?
They're elegant like the elephant.
Elegant like an elephant. Your thoughts are very deep. Are we having a niggin or
I'm niggin. I'm thinking, first of all, we want to say hello to our good friend Igor Berger and Rabbi Yitzi Krieger and Donna Waters. We see that you like the nigunim, so especially for you, Donna Waters, we have a niggin.
Not so much a niggin.
Not a niggin?
It's a guitar too.
Oh, that's a niggin.
What's this?
That's a niggin at Vayechi.
It's a Betzalel tune. Composed by the great Betzalel the Onion.
Well,
Give us a little volume. Give us a little volume. There we go. Yehi.
right.
יהי רצוי מלפונך, השם Aveseyenu, O Tati Alki, won't you do a good thing? Toy meet your people, and the angels all sing, O glorious King. Toy meet your people. They made you walk around, come back down, and please rejoin with your people. Oh, Tati, you know it don't mean rejoin with your people. Shevon neve samig da b'meira b'yomeinu Sein chelkeinu b'seiro secho Shevon neve samig da b'meira b'yomeinu Sein chelkeinu b'seiro secho Shevon neve samig da b'meira b'yomeinu Sein chelkeinu b'seiro secho Build our holy temple speedily in our days and give us a portion in your Torah. Build our holy temple speedily in our days and give us our portion in your Torah.
All I can say is wow.
Wow, wee zowie.
And I can say it backwards. Wow. That was great. Now, Malchus of Atzilus, this level of godly royalty, has two levels. There is the way it is in Atzilus, in other words, how it absorbs the godly light of higher levels than it. And there it's still separate from enlivening creation and bringing them into being. And then Malchus descends to become the crown of the created world. And that descent is brought about through a curtain which separates the godly world of Atzilus and the created separate worlds. Like it says, your kingship, that's how Malchus is in the world of Atzilus, is a kingship over all worlds. That's how Malchus descends to be the king of the world.
Bitzalel, I don't usually disturb Chas v'Shalom in the middle of you speaking for call outs, but hello, Gidon Everett!
Oh, yay, Gidon!
Gidon!
Our old friend.
Good old Gidon.
So how Malchus,
L'chaim.
descends to be the crown of creation,
You miss.
is how through which Hashem brings the worlds into being from nothing and enlivens them. Like we say, your name is exalted. That's how Malchus is in the world of Atzilus, which indicates Malchus in the world of Atzilus, exalted from the creations. That's Hashem's name is exalted from the creations. From which, and from that exaltedness of Malchus, a ray shines on the heaven and earth, which is a reflection of Malchus, which creates and enlivens the creations from nothing, from zippity doodah.
Zippity doodah.
Now, the outflow of Malchus of Atzilus, as it becomes the crown of the world of Bria, is manifest through its 30 vessels. Now the Rebbe is going to explain how it is that Malchus not only brings the worlds into being, but enlivens them. And the way it enlivens them is through its 30 vessels. So we have a question. We know that there's 10 spheros. So how is it that Malchus has 30 vessels if there's only 10 spheros? But Malchus has 30 vessels because every vessel has an inner level, like we explained, like the inner part of the cup. It has an intermediate level, like the walls of the cup, and an outer level, the handle, which allows it to be grasped and the contents to be ingested. So each one of the 10 spheros of Atzilus is dressed into 30 vessels. So, for example, the Chachma of Malchus of Atzilus has the inner level of Chachma, the intermediate level of Chachma, and the outer level of Chachma. So there's 30 vessels of Malchus of Atzilus, and Malchus of Atzilus is a godly thing. It's not just a creation, it's actually godly. And each of the 10 attributes of Malchus has 3 dimensions, like we just said, that there's the 10 inner vessels of Malchus, and this is amazing. Check this out.
Check it out.
The 10 inner vessels of Malchus become the soul, the neshama, which enlivens the world of Bria.
So it's like the body from the upper one becomes the soul of the lower one, something like this?
The 10 inner vessels of Malchus of Atzilus become the soul which enlivens the world of Bria. And the 10 intermediate vessels of Malchus become the soul of the world of Yetzirah. And the 10 outer vessels of Malchus become the soul of the world of Asiya. So there's 30 vessels of Malchus of Atzilus, and they become the soul which enlivens each of the 3 worlds. Because in order to enliven something, you have to be godly. So those vessels of Malchus are godly. And they become the neshama of the 3 worlds. So even the 10 outer vessels of Malchus, as it becomes the crown of the 3 lower worlds, become the inner vessels, the soul of the lowest world of action of Asiya. And the vessels of Malchus, being from the world of Atzilus, are godly. And those 30 vessels are godly, being vessels of Malchus of Atzilus, and therefore they can enliven the 3 worlds. Thus we see the object of the metaphor of how the soul enlivens the body, and how the vessels of Malchus become the enlivening soul of the 3 created worlds.
Heavy duty.
It's amazing how Hashem does that. Now, we're going to find out that each of those worlds has intermediate vessels and outer vessels, which are not godly, which are creations. And I'm going to skip a little bit because we're coming to our sign-off level. But, for example, the outer level of kindness, of chesed, of the world of Bria, You want to take a guess, Morty?
Oh, what? The outer layer of
The outer vessel
Yes.
of kindness of the world of Bria is not godly, it's a creation. You want to take a guess what it is?
The angel Raphael.
Mechoil, very close.
Oh, I said Raphael. Okay.
Yeah, very close. You see that? And the outer vessel of Gevura
I don't know how.
of the world of Bria is Leib.
Gevura is who's that malach?
Is the angel Gabriel.
Gabriel!
Yes!
Oh! And they are creations, they're not godly, they don't enliven the world. So they are like the level of the actor in the act, rather than how the soul enlivens the body. And I think now we're going to
Well, we have a question.
Oh,
So Gidon asks
oh,
this. What we said, this idea.
Because Gidon making trouble again.
Yeah, but thank God.
I'll take you
Thank
don't
you.
trouble over everybody else's smile.
So
Not
here's the
true.
question.
Yeah.
We said this idea of that how the inner vessel of the malchus of Atzilus becomes
The
the
neshama.
neshama. So the question is, how does this idea fit with the malchus of the upper world becomes the keser of the lower world?
You heard the question, Rabbi?
Yeah,
Don't stop the
I
teacher.
hear the
Stop the
question.
Malamed.
I hear the question. And what we said, that there's a level of malchus of Atzilus as it's in Atzilus, and then how malchus of Atzilus descends to become the Kesser of the lower world. So how it is in the higher world, in the world of Atzilus, it's higher than being the Kesser of the lower world. But as it descends to express Hashem's desire for a world, now it becomes the crown of that world. The same kind of way when the king tells his minister, go capture that city. For the king, it's his lowest level. It's his speech. But the minister who receives the speech, that becomes the desire of that minister. It becomes his higher level. So Malchus of the higher level becomes Kesser of the lower level.
So is that the same as the outer vessel becoming the soul of the
No, you
of
mean
Bria?
the inner vessel? You
Yeah.
mean
So how does the
vessels of Malchus become the soul of Bria?
yeah? How does that connect?
I don't think I don't think it's the same thing. I think that the mashal of how the vessels of Malchus become the soul of the lower world is how it's the king who's really the boss of the minister. The minister has nothing for himself. It's only the king that is making the minister into the minister. So that will be the metaphor of how.
So in a sense, we could say then that both the Malchus and the Kesser is before it became the soul of the minister. Before it became the soul of the
the soul of the minister itself is an outer vessel.
Yeah.
But it's the king himself who's giving the minister the power and the life to be able to carry out his ministry.
Yeah.
So
Makes sense.
it's a good idea to think about this more. And let's think about
A minister and his wife are ministers.
My advice is do some hisbonenus on this one.
No, it's a very
we
good
also have
question.
those bindings because
Very
really
good
the idea is the time like the Mittler Rebbe says we have to understand this in a particular way, Davke.
Yeah,
So it's not it's so we did a good actually a very good thing to do is bindings on.
very
Is
good.
how do
question.
these two ideas connect and link?
I think we'll return to it next time.
Yeah, and again,
Oh, a nigga?
of course.
Oh, okay. Let's do a nigga. Ay, 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 ay,
You want should I get you that stick?
Oh.
Oh, la, 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 oh, la, 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 la,
Wait,
la,
time
la,
out.
la.
You might have to get down a little bit more volume.
Okay.
You ready, guys?
A little bit less volume. Yes, perfect. Hey, ya, 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 ya,
Oh, yeah. Remember, kids, yeah, 'cause it's